Chapter 29. On December 29, 2014, the CIA sent out a tweet saying that all the unusual activity in the skies in the 1950s, they were responsible for it, the CIA. So they basically discounted thousands of UFO reports and witnesses that said that they saw UFOs in the sky with one tweet. And they were basically saying that it was just spy planes. And Project Blue Book investigated many of these accounts, but they remain unexplained to this day. So the chapter takes a look at some of the reports from the 1950s. On September 16, 1952, on Portland, Maine, there was a crew on a U.S. Navy P-2B Neptune patrol plane that saw 5 lights in the early evening sky, and they saw the lights through sight and through radar. They were tracked on radar for over 20 minutes, and they remain unidentified to this day. In January 1953, in Presque Isle Air Force Base, a former sergeant remembered a UFO incident from the early 1950s where a UFO was observed during daylight hours. 4 F-94B fighter jets were sent out to the last known location. The pilots were able to lock in to the target, but the object accelerated 2,000 miles per hour and ascended 75,000 feet, and they lost sight of it. There was another encounter in Presque Isle Air Force Base that same year, witnessed by multiple people. A sergeant was attempting to bring in the B-26 aircraft, and he saw an unknown object traveling near a small mountainous area near the base. The sergeant reported this to the tower, and they could confirm that they saw the object on the radar. So the B-26, it was about to land, but it aborted that, and it started following the object. The sergeant followed the object onto the base where it hovered over the runway. Then he was ordered to land his aircraft. During that time, the tower operator took several photographs of the object before it accelerated at high speed, making a high-pitched noise as it left the area. All the witnesses of the object were interviewed, and the photos were confiscated, and they were ordered not to speak about what they saw. April 23, 1954, in Pittsfield, Maine, Mr. and Mrs. Robinson saw a disc-shaped object with a dome and flashing lights during a morning walk, and they said that it made a sound like a swarm of bees and it hovered above the treetops. Then it took off at great speed. April 24, 1954, in Hartland, Maine, Mr. Robinson spotted a large silver oblong object. It had a dome on the top and flashing lights. He saw this for 15 minutes, and then the object flew straight and level, and then straight up. November 15, 1954, Augusta, Maine. A manager at a radio station claims to have seen 10 gold circular objects that flew in a vertical V formation. He said that the encounter lasted around 3 minutes. December 21, 1955, a young woman named Roberta Jacobs was turning in for the night when a light outside caught her eye. She looked out the window and saw a red orange glow in the moonless and starless sky. The glow got brighter and was beautiful. And then the light started to dim, and she could see a UFO-like shape that was visible. It was a disc surmounted by a dome, and it had an egg-shaped appearance. Roberta could not look away. The craft descended and began hovering directly over her barn. Roberta saw that the undercarriage of the object rotated at high speed, and the color seemed to change to a pure gold. She could see a shadow between the dome and the bottom of the object, and she felt sick, and she had a sense that the occupants of the craft were observing her and reading her thoughts. She was about to call the cops, but the UFO ascended at great speed. The next day, she reported the incident to the police. On November 1956, Glen Cove, Maine, Dr. Andrea Puharich, a physician, had a peculiar encounter with some friends one evening. They saw a ball in the sky, which they thought was the moon at first. They were shocked, and they continued to watch until it was no longer in sight. Later that night, the doctor couldn't sleep, and he went for a walk on the beach. While he was at the beach, he saw a transparent object that contained 3 small figures that were staring at him. He told this to his friends the next morning and to the local authorities days later. August 1959, Turner, Maine. Emily Denault arrived home one August evening. She got out of her car and she heard a low rumbling sound and saw some lights hovering over the field across the street. She thought it was a helicopter in distress that was about to make an emergency landing, but it did not land. It continued to hover. She called for her family to come check it out. Just as they came to see, the craft slowly and quietly landed in the field. The lights on the craft turned off, and the family was in disbelief. Then a second object came and descended rapidly and hovered directly above the first craft. Emily grabbed her binoculars, but her eyes were blinded by a blue light that made her eyes water. Suddenly, the landed object rose off the ground and it joined the second object, and in an instant they ascended rapidly and out of sight. The family went to walk over the field to where the objects were, and they saw that there was a small area of burnt grass